All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back.
Hey guys,
What's up, you fucking giants?
uh,
Welcome back to 512 Pod bonus episode
bonus episode number
number
one.
one.
Um, like we said, if you have listened to episode 8, there is a chance that you saw what we were talking about. That you saw what we were talking, like the name of this episode, and you were like, "Hey, let me jump in. It seems interesting." Um, you might not know what this is going to be like. Uh, Basically, we're going to be using this bonus episode to talk about the like BLM movement. We're going to be talking about the protests, um, just our thoughts on the situation, and we felt like we should use this platform to talk about it because it's a very important thing going on, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
And I do want to preface this by saying that we are definitely not experts of like we're not experts in this like topic. And I definitely don't mean to talk um I want to talk from my own experience and my own opinions. And I can say this for Isaac as well, I'm sure. We don't mean to take away anything from the black experience, because we are not black. So how could we talk about that? What we
Yeah.
can't talk about is our own feelings, and just like how the situation seems to us. And you know yeah, I think that sums it up. Like I don't mean to take away voices from black people, but I think this topic needs to be discussed.
Yeah. And I mean, I think to that point, um, it's actually really important to get support from all sides. So whereas we're not, those of you watching the video, you can tell by our skin colors, we are not black. Um, but it's I think like for like a movement, especially such as like, this movement, you need you need people showing support from all walks of life, just to give like a unified stance saying that this transcends like just whatever. That it's like an important thing regardless of whether like you are black or not. But um but it's important for black people, to be the ones controlling the narrative and not us. So that's not what we're doing here. We're not going to control like the narrative of BLM. So if anything we say here is wrong, we just didn't know. So we're not trying to say anything like that. We're not trying to state anything that's not correct as fact. We are not orchestrators of these like protests or like we're not orchestrators of the BLM movement. We're not part of like the leadership team, and we're not the ones making like the list of like
Like
what
it's
is it
not
called?
about
Yeah, it's
us.
not about us. Yeah, but we're
It's not about
giving
us.
we want to give our support, and we want to show that we're listening and that we care, um and stuff like that. Yeah. So
Yeah, and initially, like when we first Isaac and I, we will like message each other and be like, hey, like what do you think about discussing this? At first, like I did think about this, and I was a little hesitant, not because um I don't support the movement, because I do. I think it's very important, and it's a very real thing.
mhm,
I think it was more like I I didn't feel qualified to talk about it,
mhm,
but the more I realized, like the more I thought about it, I realized that we don't have to be experts, and you don't have to be like a detective to see what's going on.
yeah,
And like of course there are some things that I am not the most knowledgeable about, and if you hear something that either of us says that like sounds incorrect, that maybe you want clarification on, please do tell us,
yeah,
because like we said, like we are not experts on this. um we just want to increase awareness, we want to support. Um so uh please feel free to call us out, feel free to let us know um how you feel
yeah.
about what we're saying.
Because we can always just say And I think Shiv and I are both on the same page as being like, I'm wrong about that. I was wrong. Somebody corrected me. I was wrong. Um, so if you do reach out to us, we will make a post on our socials, and then again on when we record the next episode, we'll begin the episode by saying, yeah, we have a list of corrections, redactions, addendums, to what we said, just to give the most
Mhm,
accurate information because we're learning, we're noobs, so
mhm. Yeah, for sure.
we are gonna say stuff that's incorrect from time to time, despite our massive brains and pool of knowledge that is just
The biggest brains.
seemingly infinite in our
Unfortunately,
minds.
our big brains are no match for some other people's.
Larger
Um,
brains, yeah. We're no
yes.
match for the
So,
experts in the fields, because we're not experts.
yes.
We're a jack of all trades, master of none. Um,
Yeah.
so
So,
we know a little bit about a lot, but not a lot of bit about a little.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Mhm.
you know, just wanna keep this as, like, as open and honest as possible.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just, like, I guess just diving right in, um, when did you first hear about,
This is an interview.
like, the
I'm
I
just
think
kidding.
that's
Yeah,
just,
that's
like, a
fine. Yeah,
good way to start it off.
okay.
Um, when did you first hear about all of the things, that were going on? Like,
I mean,
maybe when did you hear about, like, what happened, regarding George
I
Floyd?
saw the video, like, I think the day it was posted, because I go on Reddit a lot, and that's how I get my news. Just because,
Mhm.
like, it's pretty quick about stuff happening. Like Kobe, when Kobe died, we just
It was,
happened, it was really weird. I dropped my phone, so, um, I actually found out it from my friend group. We were all at a restaurant, and I found out before they did, um, that he died because there was like a post from like I was just scrolling through our all like my feed, and then there was like
Mhm.
this post for what's it called? I don't know what subreddit it was on, but somebody was like Kobe Bryant's dead, and it had 7,000 upvotes, and I was like, "There's no way," you know. And so I kind of said that I was like, "Wait, this says Kobe Bryant died. Do you guys know about this? Or like, are you whatever?" And then everybody at the table was like, "What? No, I haven't heard about this." So then I like refreshed the feed, and there was like the big subreddits, all of them like they all echoed the same thing:
Started
Kobe
talking
Bryant
about it.
dead, died in a helicopter crash. And then like I don't even know, like 5 minutes later, it was on like the TV in the restaurant, showing
Mhm.
like like some news report, like, oh my god, yeah, Kobe Bryant's dead. And I was like, what the hell? So I actually saw it when it first kind of like did. I didn't watch the video because like the like the thing was like, oh yeah, dude gets killed by cop, George Floyd got killed by cop, um, while like not resisting. And it was just one of those things where it's like I don't really want to see a guy die, so I'm not gonna
Yeah.
watch it, but I'm gonna like
Mhm.
look at like the comments and see what people are like saying about this shit. And the wild thing is like, so like BLM happened 5 years ago. 5 years, right?
I don't know if it really happened per
Because
se,
it like
you know what I
sprung
mean?
up. It sprung up during Obama's administration because there was some police brutality and somebody who was it? I forgot his name. That's really bad that I forgot his
I
name. It starts with a T, right? You know who I'm talking about.
I'm really
Okay, I'm gonna look it up because I'm gonna put respect on this man's name. I'm not
I
gonna.
feel like it's been, like I don't know if it maybe, like, Obama being president, like, caused, like, the movement to, like, resurface, but I think it's always it's, like, been a thing, to my
Let me just
understanding.
look up. Well, I remember seeing it first because this is not like the first time done like they've tried to do this movement. Like the last time this happened, like a lot of or the last big time it kind of spurred out and there was protest. It was the same kind of like arguments against it. Like, oh, this is violent. People are being violent. Um, like this is really Black
Are you
Lives
talking
Matter, All Lives
about
Matter.
in Are you talking about 2012
I
with
believe so.
Trayvon Martin?
Yes, yes. Okay, so that was
Okay,
8
yeah,
years ago, sorry. Um,
mhm.
happened yeah, so Trayvon Martin died. I knew it started with a T, I just couldn't remember. I'm really bad with names. It was, like, 8
I
years
was
ago.
like, I know the name, but I was like, I just wanna be careful.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, so
But yeah,
yeah.
so they started it, and it was the same kind of thing where it's like Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, and they would say like, "Oh, these protests are violent." It's the same like kind of thing. I'm not a good on the history, and I kind of like only surface pay attention at that point because that was like I was in high school, junior high, so I was like,
Yeah, I was 12.
yeah, you're oh, that's right, Mr. 2000. I was
Yeah, so
15
I
or
like
16.
I definitely was not like very cognizant
Yeah.
about events at the time.
Yeah, same. I was like just a stupid ass little high school bitch boy, not really knowing about anything. So like my perspective from that point was like it was a really big thing and then it kind of fizzled out. I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but this time I feel like it's a lot more concrete. I think so this is just like my perceptions of the movement as a whole. I think they've really they took a look at what Hong Kong did, and they're really echoing a lot of the same kind of things where it's like they're adopting like here's what we're gonna this is what we need, and we're not gonna stop protesting until we get those things. One of them being the arrest of the officers, the offending officers, which I believe didn't happen with Trayvon Martin, right? They just got away scot free.
I I'm I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if that were the
Yeah.
case.
So I think the reason why this one is so fucking strong because it's a lot stronger than last time. Maybe it's just a perception thing, but I feel like this one they have a very strong like base and foundation. I think part of it has to do with them emulating Hong Kong, but mostly I think it's just the nature of the video. Like that video is like it was the perfect storm of like things happening. There was clearly like no resistance. He was on the ground face down. The officer clearly killed him, like using not even shooting him, just like kneeling on his knee or kneeling on his neck until he would stop breathing, which is like a brutal way to kill somebody. Asphyxiation is like the worst way to die. It's super painful and stuff like that. Um, it was a like minor offense. The um like counterfeiting.
Real quick.
Hmm?
Zimmerman was charged. Zimmerman was the name of the cop
Hmm.
who killed him. Charged with second-degree murder.
Okay, yeah.
Um, Acquitted Zimmerman of murder.
Oh, but he got acquitted.
Uh, so he was acquitted.
Yeah, so that's the problem. Um,
Okay.
so like, so this one, it's like you can clearly see somebody died, and it was a minor charge. Counterfeiting money is a federal crime, but that doesn't really mean anything. That just means that it's a criminal case instead of a civil case, which means that there's a fine and potential jail time, a fine that you would pay to the government to the state, or potential jail time if it's malicious. You have to have malicious intent. So just possessing counterfeit money can get you a charge, but if there's no malicious intent behind it, like you didn't know it was counterfeit, the charge is dropped and
Mhm.
you don't pay anything. Also, it was like a $20 bill, so it would have just been a fine. There probably wouldn't have been jail
Apparently,
time.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
read it was like the first thing was it was like a forged check.
Hmm.
It wasn't a check, it was a $20 bill. Apparently it wasn't fake, I read somewhere.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
yeah,
Honestly, just the nature of the case.
so like so I read somewhere um and apparently what had happened was there was like he like purchased something at like a convenience store, I think.
Yeah.
Um and he was actually on his way back. And I could be messing up the details. This is something I remember reading this somewhere. He's going back because he was like he apparently didn't know that it was counterfeit, so he's going back to to exchange it.
Okay.
And then the convenience store owner, called the cops, and that's what escalated the whole situation.
It's really weird. Yeah, the whole process is weird, because it's like that's something that you would normally want to settle that without legal charges. Because like, I mean, think about the store owner. Like, the store owner just lost $20 because it's not like a civil case, right? I mean, he could potentially, like, sue to get money for it, but, like, you're you might not be able to because, like, what do you the damages is $20, right? It's like,
Yeah,
the
I
way
don't know if that's enough basis for suing
it's
anybody.
not enough money to sue somebody. You have to sue, like, at least, I don't remember the number. It's really low because inflation has changed it, but, like, I think it's, like, $200 and you can sue. Um, so, like, you have to have like, sue for enough money, but if they're suing for damages, which is, like, lost income due to the offense, it would just be 20 bucks. So you can't even, like, sue for it. So they just lost revenue for no reason. So it's like, why wouldn't you, like, settle that? Like, if it was, like, you're paying $1,000 or, like, $5,000 and whatever, and you're forging, any security, like US security, that makes more sense. But, like, it's just really weird. And this is all, like, information from, like, um the Department of fuck Treasury Department, I think.
Treasury, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
actually looked up these charges because I was like, is this actually like, because some people have been saying like, oh, it's a felony, it's a felony. It's not a felony, it's a federal offense, which just means that it's a criminal case, not a civil case. Like,
but even then, it couldn't be a felony because it wasn't fake.
yeah, exactly. So it's like,
So it's just like it's just stupid, honestly. And like I think the store owner like or like the person or the store like apologized for getting the police involved, which I guess is like
mm,
I guess that helps. Not really.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Oh.
It could be that like the person, like, working the cash register was like new and they didn't know policies or they didn't know how to handle it, so they just did whatever. It could have been a racial
Mhm.
thing, but I
Oh,
don't think
yeah, yeah. I think
I don't
that
know if
was
we
part
have
of it.
evidence for that. But also it's like, the main point, the main idea is like the offending officers, because even if like, like, so nobody should
Even
have
if
died from that altercation,
yeah,
you
like
know?
even if there had actually been a problem, there's no justification for the actions that were taken.
Yeah, and that's like the point, is that that charge, the crime definitely did not fit what, like, happened to him. Also, even if it was like something violent, the point of police is not to be executioner. We have a state. We have the state to decide. Like, especially in Texas, we have the death penalty. The state will decide if a life needs to be taken, which,
Mhm.
setting aside politics on that and like ideas about that, because that's not what we're talking about today. Um, like, it's not up to the, like, police officers to make that decision, regardless of whether or not, it's a race thing. Like, if it was a white guy who died, if it was whatever who died, that's like the whole point is like that should not have happened. Now, and the reason why it's like Black Lives Matter, I've seen this a lot too, is people were like, "Oh, all lives matter. Why are you just saying only Black Lives Matter?" The point of like Black Lives Matter is that to society, a lot of times the like message is that Black lives don't matter. In the case of
Mhm.
like George Floyd, it was a severely minor offense, and he got murdered by a police officer who's had like a record of
There's
like
a history
a
of yeah,
history of
yeah.
like race-based offenses against civilian citizens, like US citizens who have rights and have like
Mhm.
lives and stuff like that. So, um so the whole point of Black Lives Matter, like the statement Black Lives Matter implies that somebody thinks that they don't. Not it's not saying only Black Lives Matter. That's not the
Mhm.
phrase. The phrase is Black Lives Matter, and that phrase denotes like a correction to somebody's mentality that they possibly don't. So it's the movement is focused on black people because they have like the most they have the longest history of just not, at least in the societal stance, of just not having any kind of rights or say. Like,
Or just fair treatment.
we've had
Yeah.
like 300 years of them trying to like become something to society. They used to be fucking 3/5 of a human, and now they're a whole human, but then they couldn't vote, and then they finally got voting rights. But then like there was still like Jim Crow
Like
laws
there's
that,
always something.
yeah,
There's
it's
always
always
something
something,
that like that's like, okay, you can ask for this, but well, that's the extent of it. Like,
yeah.
you know,
So I
and
don't
yeah, it's just yeah.
I just don't think it's like, I don't think it's unfair to say like, "Oh, we matter too." It's not unfair to say that. And when you look at it from "we matter too," then like, or just "we matter," like that phrase, should like tell you that they feel like they don't, and like to say like, oh, you, and then
Like,
to kind of like dilute that and basically say like you don't matter, because that's what all lives matter says. It's like all lives matter has the like implication that not a single person is more valuable than another person, which is like true. But when you think of the like kind of using it as an attack against a movement,
against Black Lives
it
Matter,
it
then
makes it
it's
seem
like it's showing that they're not like
important. Yeah, like you're not important,
y-
which kind of in of itself says like is counter, like in of itself, it's like they're like we matter, and you're like no, you don't. Like when you look at it from that perspective, it's like
yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I can see why people who say that can they try and justify it as saying that like, oh, we're not saying that like they don't, we're just saying that everybody does.
Mhm.
But the thing is, like if we look at white people in particular, like I think they're no-
I
oh,
did that because 'cause I'm white.
I think they're fine.
Mhm.
And like the people that need like equal treatment and equal rights, like they are black. They are not white people.
Yeah,
That's why there's a movement around giving black people those same rights.
yeah, yeah.
That's why it exists.
Yeah, so, like, of course, everybody believes that we're all equal and we all deserve whatever, but it's very true that in America, there is a large group of people that do not believe that, and that's what they're fighting against. And more very importantly too, they're also fighting against police brutality, which affects all of us. You know, there are like, a lot of people will pull up the statistics of like, "Oh, this person died, but nobody cared because they were white." It's like, well, if you really, like if you really
Like, what
look
did
at
the person do? Like,
huh?
I think no, sorry, you can keep going.
Oh,
I'll jump
sorry.
in later.
It's like when you look at it, like if you paid attention to, if you're paying attention to like what the movement's like doing and saying, and like okay, so just look at all of the videos that are going up on all the various social media sites. Like you've seen them, definitely seen them. Sorry, and people have tried to justify it really, really hard. Um, like look at like Reddit, look at Facebook, look at Twitter, Instagram, anything, even TikTok. They have so many videos of people just doing nothing, peacefully protesting, which is a First Amendment right. And the First Amendment right, by the way, is your right to express yourself without government interference. So I can say I hate America, fuck America, and no government official or government entity is allowed to censor me on that. If I post that on Twitter and Twitter for some reason is like pro America, which is not. If okay, so for an example, if I post that on like an American like patriotic subreddit, like I don't know, like the Donald or like conservatives or something like that. If I post
Hmm.
fuck America, America sucks, I can get my post removed and I can get banned by the moderator. That's fine. They're not a government
Because you're
entity.
using their
Yeah,
medium to like do it.
they're not a government entity. They're a private organization, and private organizations are allowed to uh represent service, like whatever, to whoever they want. They reserve the right to do that. We saw that not that long ago with the like Christian bakery that wouldn't sell a cake to a gay
Oh,
couple.
the
Yeah,
right, yeah.
fucked up as it may be, however, whatever side you're on, they legally have the right to do that. They're a private organization, they're private business. They're able to deny based on
I don't
anything.
know if they are
Or
anymore. I
actually,
think they might have gone out of
you're
business.
technically not allowed to do it based on like
The
discrimination.
discrimination
Yeah,
of
so that's where it
like
kind of played into it. So partially they could
yeah, yeah.
say it's a conflict because it's a religious thing. So like the separation of church and state, like that's why it was so complicated, because like it's like, do you believe in separation of church and state, or are they not allowed to discriminate based on whatever? Because they did like self-identify as like a Christian bakery, so it was in of a sense both a business entity and a religious organization. So it's like kind of it's very muddy. I'm not a legal
Yeah.
expert and I'm not a legal whatever, but it's an interesting like idea and topic to talk about. But like the point being is that like if you're silently protesting and the police, if you're protesting peacefully and not not affecting lives, not like hurting people, not disrupting emergency operations. Like you probably saw people lying down blocking a bridge. If EMS were to go through that bridge, all the people would like part like the Red Sea and like allow the EMS personnel to drive through and like whatever. So if they're not disrupting like emergency services, if they're not destroying property, if they're not um, inciting violence or causing violence, so like they're not encouraging people to do violent things, and if they're not doing violent things, then for the police to kind of silence or like do any kind of active aggression against the protesters is a violation of the First Amendment because they're a government entity and they're government officials and operators. So they're not allowed to do what they're doing. So from a constitutional standpoint, it's a very big deal because our constitutional right is being defiled, and also openly by like the administration. Like the president is actively against whatever. So like that's from when you look at it from that perspective, like the Black Lives Matter movement is also protesting this police brutality. Because legally speaking, if a police officer is threatening you or is about to kill you or threatening to kill you or whatever, and you haven't committed anything wrong, like from a legal perspective, and if you're just like, if you're not violating any laws, you can't do anything to stop them legally. If somebody tries to save you, it's an obstruction of justice. If you touch them, you are touching. If you're physically touching them, you physically touch a police officer, which is uh like a felony. Like
I
they're
think that's
all,
an offense. Yeah.
yeah, federal offense. They're all like criminal offenses to do that. So you can't stop. Like all the people are saying like, "Oh my god, like they just recorded this guy dying and they didn't step in." If anybody stepped in, they would have been arrested and
Like maybe the same thing.
yeah, and
Like
also like these are armed officials. They 100% would have died. Like that's something you got to
yeah,
realize. If they tried to save George Floyd, everybody would have died like in that Senate like
especially
scenario.
considering that especially considering the history of that one, I think Chauvin,
Yeah.
I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah, Chauvin, yeah,
Um
I think.
but why would anybody try and push him off or like fight him if they understand, especially if after understanding the risk that he already poses to people from people of minorities, right?
Yeah.
Just considering his history.
It's yeah, so, like, even if, like, a white person were to, like, tackle that officer, they still would get shot. You know, you have these people that are on edge, these police officers that are on edge, and they can do whatever they want, legally speaking. They are allowed to do whatever they want, um, and they like, if you tried to interfere, like, white or not, with that, like, murder, you also will be murdered, you know, like, they all are armed, they're all able to use their weapons very effectively. We've seen people get shot. There's a video of, like, a homeless person that just got lit up. It's fucking sad, but, like, he wasn't really doing anything, and they just, like, open fired on him several times. Like, they launched, like, I think they fired, like, 17 shots and 13 of them hit. And I'm like, "Holy shit, that's excessive." So it's like that.
It kind of speaks volumes about the policing system in general, and not just about how unfair treatment toward minorities,
Mhm.
but the allowance of people into police academies and to police force.
Yeah,
Because from what I understand, there's very little uh gateway to gateway of entry,
yeah,
or gateway of there's
yeah,
you know what I'm
there's
saying,
few barriers to entry.
barriers to
Yeah,
entry. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So so it's very easy for people who are who like you who okay, speaking for myself, who I wouldn't want to have that sort of authority and power.
yeah,
It's very easy for people like that to be granted that,
yeah,
which I think just speaks volumes about the reform and change necessary for the policing system.
yeah. and I want to talk about that a little bit more. But before we do, I also want to clarify the whole purpose of Black Lives Matter is a peaceful protest. So I know a lot of people are this is something that really bothers me because the logic doesn't make sense. I actually watched a video of a black man who was like, "You guys lost me. Like you had me at like the peaceful protesting, and like you had me at like the um justice for George Floyd and like stopping police brutality. But then when you guys started rioting and looting, like you lost me." And that whole argument is like really really dumb because if you're really truly against police violence and you're wanting justice for George Floyd and you're against what happened, it shouldn't like a few agents or a few actors of the movement that like presumably of the movement that kind of deviated from the purpose of the movement for you to just completely like not support the idea of what they're doing, like justice for
Yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah.
like avenging his death, or not avenging per se, but just getting justice for him. um,
Mhm.
you weren't really in support of that if that's all it takes to, like, get you, like,
Yeah,
to go off.
I think it's that mentality of, like, because 'cause you'll hear that, like, regarding cops,
Yeah,
you'll hear, like, people say a few bad apples, right?
yeah,
Like, amongst the cops, but I feel like people fail to realize that that also can apply to people who are protesting.
yeah.
Like, I've watched a video, and I don't mean to say that watching a video makes me an expert on this.
Nice.
But
I read a Wikipedia
like,
article.
but there was like a peaceful protest going on, and people, like who I don't even think were part of the group that were like protesting on the streets. They started breaking windows and such, and people within the protest group were like yelling at them to
Yeah,
stop, which I think speaks volumes. I do think though that like um I support peaceful protesting, but I also understand why there is like not peaceful protesting because like I think historically riots have incited change. Um, and that's not to say that it's for me, it's kind of a weird gray area because I can see how, just if considering historically that's what's effective and that's what needs to be done, it's like, okay, then I get why it's happening.
yeah,
At the same time, I'm like, oh shit, people are going to get hurt. You know, there is harm being done. So it's hard to say that at least for me it's hard to say oh this is a good thing when there is harm being done, but at the same time like out of this I think positive change will come.
yeah.
So I think it's necessary.
Yeah, it's so ironic when you look at it because, like, like, last year or 2 year I think it was last year, people were applauding all of these, like, protests and, like, essentially riots in other countries, not just Hong Kong, but like other countries against these tyrannical governments, like there's a lot of South America, like Latin countries that were, you know, rioting and stuff like that. And people were applauding. I don't know if I don't know if it's necessarily the same people that are kind of demeaning and like degrading the Black Lives Matter movement, but I I feel like this consensus was like, "Oh my God, good for you! Like, good thing you're protesting this tyrannical government." And it's like we're essentially doing the same thing now, and people are like, "Well, that's not good." And it's like, "What?" But at the core, Black Lives Matter movement is a peaceful protest, and the organization is standing by the idea in the sense that we are doing this peacefully. We're not inciting violence, we're not causing destruction, we're not rioting, we're not looting. Um, so if you look at it that way, anybody who's like rioting and looting, inciting violence, causing violence, they either are not part of the Black Lives Matter movement, they don't or they don't understand the Black Lives Matter movement, and therefore they cannot represent the Black Lives Matter movement, even if they want to or if they say that they are. Because like not to be conspiracy theorists, but there are agents against this movement that would want to demean the meaning of the movement. So therefore, wouldn't it be like a good idea for them to go to the protest and incite violence, start rioting, start looting, just to like decredit the Black Lives Matter movement as a whole, so that they can later say, "Oh, look at this,
Isaac,
they're all rioting and looting." Um, so it's uh, I don't like having like a tinfoil hat, but I don't think that's a conspiracy. I don't think that's like,
hang on,
or
Isaac.
as in the sense of like, I don't think it's like far fetched to assume that. I think it's very logical to assume that there are like agents working against this movement, and they're inside these protests, inciting violence, trying to riot, trying to loot. There's a video of a live streamer who tried to like convince people to flip a truck, and everybody's like, "Yo, hold up, the fuck? Did you just tell me to flip over that truck? Hey yo, this guy tried to get me to flip over this fucking truck. Let's get him." And then like he just ran away because he was like afraid that they would like
Wait, hold on,
throw him out.
Isaac.
Hmm.
I missed like the last 2 minutes of what you just said. Like, I'm gonna be
I
completely
I
honest.
figured.
Um,
Um, are you back?
I didn't hear anything you just said.
Okay, yeah, I figured.
Well,
Are you back now, or are you still stuttering?
yeah, no, I can see you now.
Okay.
It was just stuck with you just making it was like the same thing, and I was like, ah, something's wrong.
I just basically said like, oh, what did I say? Holy shit! I was just going on a roll. Shit. Oh, I said that that anybody who what was the last thing you heard?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Okay, I said that inherently Black Lives Matter movement is peaceful. They are emulating the civil rights movement of the 1950s and Martin Luther King's like teachings and preachings of like non-violent protesting and peaceful protesting, because that's the most effective tool of change. If you don't, I didn't say this, but I'm gonna say it now. If you don't, um, if you don't resist, or like if you are peacefully acting and you're not doing anything evil or with ill intent, and if they provide resistance and you don't resist, it just credits your movement like so much more than it would be if you were like actively fighting the police. um so that's the angle that they're going at, which makes sense from like a marketing perspective. So it doesn't make sense to say that like, oh, these protests are very violent, or that they're rioting and looting, they're taking opportunities to riot and loot, because they're not. And why would they? That doesn't give any credence to their movement. And then I said that there are actors working against the Black Lives Matter movement that are trying to defraud it, or not defraud it. Um, Defrauding is good, damn. Discredit like the movement, and
Discredit, yeah, yeah.
demean like what they're doing. So I said it's not illogical, or it's not tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists to theorize or to assume that there are people going to the protest to incite violence, to try to incite rioting and looting, because that would add to their cause, saying like, "Oh,
Oh,
this is terrible.
yeah,
This is a
they're
shame."
bad.
Yeah, so it's
Have
like,
you seen the undercover cops thing?
no, what are you talking about?
So, I was reading this article, and apparently they'll send in undercover cops who will be dressed in like civilian clothes,
Oh,
and they'll have like distinctive markers, and not like writing markers, but like they'll they'll wear certain like colored armbands on particular days. So it was I wish I'd saved the thing that I saw, but like you saw like this guy had like a white armband, and like a couple feet in front of him there was another dude who also had a white armband, and they both also had like these very distinctive like they're not like in your face, but you can see them. They're like these like blue bracelets, I guess you could say.
mhm,
Um, and like both the cops had them. You could see in the picture was taken uh behind the undercover cop that I talked about before, but you could see like he had like handcuffs in his back pocket. Um,
mm,
and so what I saw was that uh people like undercover cops are going and like and doing harmful things while undercover to like incite it, or give reason for like violent action, uh, to like to give cops a reason to act violently against civilians
That
because they're like, oh, the civilians are doing like they're breaking windows, even though that's technically an undercover cop.
mm,
And they'll be like, civilians are breaking windows. We have to act with more force.
that sounds like entrapment. That sounds highly fucking
I
illegal.
think it is. I
Yeah,
think it
I'm
is
pretty sure
entrapment,
that's textbook entrapment. So that's what I'm saying.
which is
Like
like,
they're
which is
actively
really fucked up.
they're actively trampling. They're actually committing war crimes. Fun fact, because they're attacking medical staff, and they're attacking like medical staff who are like treating people, um, as in like oh, maybe that's not technically correct, but I feel like it's not incorrect. Like people that are like in nursing like kind of whatever
Like scrubs
scrubs
and
and stuff
like
like that who are there to kind of like
PPE
yeah to help like you know
protesters.
yeah to like actually like they're there to like either just by coincidence or like they actively are there to like treat people that are protesting and they're actively like attacking them and they're also attacking journalists, which I believe are violations of the Geneva Convention, which means that the U.S. police force is committing war crimes against. Oh, also they're firing on civilians that aren't doing anything, so that is also in of itself a war crime.
That I saw
That is
that. Like
actually
I
yeah,
did see that.
that
They
is
fired on
one
civilians.
hundred percent a war crime to like to act violently towards civilians, and it's also like when you think about like the National Guard being there, and like there's a video of like the National Guard patrolling the streets and shooting at people who are on their porches, which again is a war crime. You know, like
That's like
rubber bullets or
that's not
not,
okay.
like you're still inciting violence against civilians, which is
Did you did you see what rubber bullets are actually like? Have you seen one?
they okay. They
They are that
go
is
to paintball.
nuts.
Go to a paintball place. Listen to their spiel that they legally have to give because paintball is very dangerous and can kill people if you're not careful. They say never take off your mask while you're on the field or we will eject you. They say don't put like anything other than the paintballs. Do not shoot somebody point blank. You can cause serious injury, even death in some of these circumstances. A rubber bullet is far more dense than a paintball, guaranteed. Because what is
It's
paintball?
basically a bullet.
Yeah, what is
It's
paintball?
literally a bullet.
Paintball is a thin layer that's durable enough to be fired, but malleable enough, or like structurally like
It'll break on
to
impact.
break on
It can.
impact, and then it's filled with paint. A rubber bullet is made of fucking rubber through and through, and meant to be shot from a gun, which fires way faster than a paintball gun, by the way, because it's a rifle.
They have steel in them.
Yeah. Oh, they do?
It's basically a bullet with rubber around
Yeah.
it. Like
So
a thick.
they keep saying it's non-lethal. It's not non-lethal, it's less lethal. But like using the paintball analogy and thinking of the density of a rubber bullet, the impact force that it would have, physically speaking, is far greater than a paintball, and they're shooting them point blank. And they're shooting at the
Like, are you
eyes on these
fucking kidding
unarmed
me?
people.
Like,
And you can see the damage that it does. Like so many fucking videos of people that just have their eye gone and permanently blinded, and some people dying from these bullets. There's a fucking picture of somebody who got hit on the forehead right here, and it like just a huge like gash, and it like affected their eye, even though they got hit on the forehead. I don't know if they got shot twice, but they are permanently blind in that eye, and it's like you have to
I read
understand the
about
level of
rubber.
force they're using. Sorry,
And like apparently rubber bullets are meant to be shot at
a
legs,
distance, yeah,
and
and also yeah, not at the
like they're
face.
supposed to bounce off the ground and then hit you.
Mm,
Like
that
at
would
least
make
that
sense.
was
That would make a lot of sense.
so like so they can like bounce. I don't know if that's like actually true. That's like it makes more sense to me.
That would make sense why they're
Um,
rubber, because they would. That would, yeah.
They
Because I'm like,
bounce.
why are they rubber?
It's
But
not like a fucking like Call of Duty, like a what is that shit called? Like the fucking the mortar thing? Like that's not what it is. Like
like a
like
rocket
that
launcher?
shit. Yeah, I don't fucking know, man.
What?
But like it's
Oh,
ridiculous
yeah.
to think that they're just shooting them at people point blank.
Yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to mention earlier, I was glad that you brought up the 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 medical practitioners thing,
Mhm.
being involved in protests, because I was reading this thing about the Houston fiscal year budget,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you saw it in the thing,
No.
but the proposed budget for the police department, the Houston Police Department for 2021, it's 900. Okay, I'm gonna round up, $965 million.
What? That's a lot
Okay,
of
okay.
money.
And,
Is that just for one police department?
it's for Houston as a whole.
That's
It's
for
$1 billion.
that's just for the city of Houston,
That's for Houston, yeah.
and it's that much?
Yeah, it's about $1 billion.
That's a fuck
Okay?
ton. That's so much money.
It is a fuck ton.
There's so much
It's so
money.
much money. And, so I'm looking at the budget report for, I don't have the 2020. Let me see if I have the 2021. Okay, no, I do have it. Okay, so the I don't know if is Houston Emergency Center, like, what is it? Should be under public safety, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this says $40 million
Mhm. W Wow.
for medical related
Yeah. Wow.
costs.
That's fucking
40 million
so you
dollars
have almost a
as
billion.
opposed to
Wait, how okay, what's the scale though? Is that just for one, like, hospital?
no, that's Houston. This
Oh,
is
okay, so all of
this is
Houston.
Houston.
Yeah. So, like so the difference is 960 million almost.
No, it's 920 million.
920 million. So the police
Yeah, yeah,
department
yeah.
how the fuck do we have crime? What?
I don't
They
know.
can make a
If you're
robot cop.
spending close if you're spending that much, nice callback.
If you watch
If
the
you're
episode.
spending over $1 billion
Jeez.
on your police force, you should be good.
Yeah.
You like
Why the fuck would anybody act that would be the most chill blow off job ever. Like
that's
if you're getting paid a fuck ton of money just to fucking be a police officer, why are we not getting like a bunch of slack ops fucking
I think
who
that's
are just showing up like there's like a fucking like there's like a dispute like the convenience store thing, they show up like an hour late and they're like, is that a fake 20? It's like, I don't know, I can't tell. They look at it like it's not a fake 20, they hand it back and then they just leave. Like why are we not getting those people? Why are we getting somebody who's like aggressively arresting somebody, trying to kill them? Oh my god.
I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
Like, there's too much money put into it, and there's too many people who are able to take advantage of that and still
It,
enact their own
it's
agendas.
just like
Um,
obviously there is misappropriate usage of the funds. If we're not able to have like because like being a fucking police officer is a stressful ass job. I don't want to take that away from being they have to respond to everything. Somebody was like I saw something coming back to what you were saying before for like the problems of like the police department. A lot of people want to like uh some headstrong people are like let's abolish all of police, but a lot of more people are like the real like I think even Black Lives Matter movement might have this as one of their things. I'm not entirely sure, but they want to greatly reform the police um like department as a whole because currently we have armed officers responding to everything. We have them responding to
mhm.
this counterfeit bill. We have them responding to an armed robbery. We have them responding to mentally ill people trying to commit suicide. We have them responding to domestic disputes. We have them responding to traffic violations, traffic incidents, everything. They're there for everything. They're even there when there's a fire. They're not fighting the fire. They're doing traffic. They're literally like diverting traffic and trying to make sure that like the area is safe. They're doing a police report. They're after like the fire's put out, they're doing an investigation to see the cause. They're doing everything. They do literally everything. And it's like of course people are on edge. Of course people are gonna like accidentally die because they like how are you gonna be trained for every single thing? Like how are you gonna be effectively trained for every scenario and respond appropriately in every scenario? And apparently like there's a lot of fear mongering that goes along with police work where they're like uh there's even this rule that like if you're within, I don't know the number, I think it's like 21 feet of somebody with a knife, then you're supposed to take like lethal action against them. Like if somebody has a knife and they're within like a certain amount of feet from you, you're allowed to take lethal action against that person. But when you think
Mhm.
about it, it's like we have police that are in vests, like bulletproof vests. You know, they're 20 feet away. If they're going to use that knife, they got to throw it. Why not just use a taser? Like I know people are like, you can't just shoot somebody in the leg and expect them to go down because adrenaline and shit like that. But like if you use a taser, they're going down. There are very few people that can like withstand like a taser and like still be standing. But it's like they have so many like different neutralizing techniques, but like they don't think to use it. There's also like a military official that became an officer, like a police officer after they did their tour or whatever. And there was something like that where it was like I don't remember the exact story or like who it was, um, but there was like a guy with like a knife within that certain amount of distance, and they were like, oh, instead of like shooting them or taking lethal force, they like talked them down and they like they got the arrest and stuff like that. And instead of being applauded
Mhm.
for like peacefully and like instead of being like applauded for de-escalating and peacefully like doing that, they got like ripped because they were like, you know, you should have handled this differently. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done whatever. Even though
Yeah.
they did exactly what they should have done. You know, so it's like,
Yeah, like, I think the expectation is that you're supposed to use force, like, from the get-go,
yeah,
and, like,
they're
that's considered
they're
de-escalation of a
very
situation.
they're very good at escalating every problem when
Very trigger happy,
yeah,
like,
well,
and not even just with, like,
but
guns, like, just
if you think of it, like they're on edge. They think they're gonna die every time they get like sent out because that's the narrative that people like say like in the department or whatever like that. They're like, oh, always be on guard. Who knows who has a gun? Who knows whatever. There's another story of somebody
Mhm.
firing like I think tear gas, and another officer thought that that was a gunshot, so they started opening fire. And then once one person started opening fire, the entire department
They all
started opening
started
fire
doing it.
and killed the guy. And it's like, why are they so on edge? You know, if we have $1 billion going to them.
Like, there should be I feel like there should be more training towards
Mhm.
making sure that they're, like, I think, like, there's a difference between being paranoid and being, trained and ready,
Yeah.
and I feel like they need to be more on the trained and ready side.
Yeah, if you just look at the difference between, like, the military and police force, like, the military specializes in, like, appropriately, like, getting these soldiers to be good under pressure. Like, they're actually in a life or death situation, and they handle it very well. You know, if we had military, like, veterans in our, like, police force, it would feel a lot different. You know, the amount of, like, level-headedness, de-escalation, stuff like that. As long as they're all like they don't have PTSD or anything like that, you know, it's just like a different level of discipline and like situational awareness. They were talking about um I think it was Noel. He was talking about like a professional police driver, or sorry, what race car driver.
Oh, race car
He
driver.
was doing like this live stream, where he was doing this racing sim with some professional racers, like a NASCAR or whatever
Mhm.
the fuck, or even like professionals for that game, and it was just a bunch of like content creators with these professionals kind of just racing. And he was like, the level of like instinct that they have is insane. So like Noel and other people are just kind of sliding around, but these race car drivers, they know exactly like when to turn and they're very aware. And it's just because of
Wait,
like
is this a game?
it's a game. It was a game. But
Okay.
in
Okay.
real life it's the same thing. Like on a track, they are very, very aware and very acutely aware. And it's just like
Yeah.
it's because they've trained, it's because their experience, it's because they know what to look for, you know? And it's like I feel like the fact that police officers are on edge and they don't know what to do and they get scared and they shoot is just a testament to the fact that they're not like trained. They don't have that experience. They don't have like the ability to know what to do. They don't have that level of training, you know, like um, even if like the a military veteran has never seen combat, they would still be able to handle these situations with such a care because they do field exercises all the time. They do field exercises like every day. They do like whatever, and I'm not trying to say like we should militarize like our police force and make them all like ex-veterans or whatever. I'm just trying to use the analogy of like there's a difference between like being aware and being trained and knowing what to do and not knowing what to do. Like you can get
Mhm.
very overwhelmed. And if you don't think that if you don't think if you think that's bullshit, just pull up a video game, just any fucking video game where you face off against people, grab somebody who knows what they're doing and try to like win against that person. You're going to get overwhelmed like so hard. Like any like fighting game, you're going to be like overwhelmed and you're going to be panicking in a video game. Like I've experienced that shit. It's if it sucks. It's fucking like scary. You're getting decimated. The guy like knows exactly what you're doing and what you're going to do and is predicting everything. They're calm and cool and
Mhm.
collective, you're freaking out. It's like it's just because like you know what you're doing versus like me who doesn't know what I'm doing, you know.
I think that's like so like going back to the budget thing, like I think like instead of spending money on properly training people, they spend it on acquiring new people.
Yeah.
And it's more of like a quantity versus quality type thing.
Yeah. Well, I
That's how I like
I,
see it.
I think like and not to like steamroll your point, but like that's why I think a lot of people are saying like we need to split up the police department because it becomes a matter of expertise. Like even if they trained those police officers, they wouldn't be able to have even $1 billion is not enough to train a police officer on every single situation and make sure that they're comfortable in every situation. So like whereas like George Floyd was a intentional like murder, like, we're not trying to say that that was unintentional or that he was scared or whatever. That was bullshit. It was intentional murder. You can watch the video yourself and see that there was no reason for him to do that. There's no reason for him to
Mhm.
kill him. This threat was neutralized. He was very compliant. He wasn't non-compliant. I think he put himself on the ground
He
and like
wasn't a threat.
he wasn't a
He
threat.
wasn't a threat.
And the police officer very clearly like from his demeanor and from his like whatever was very clearly not phased and was very clearly not afraid for his life. And I think a testament to that is the fact that the entire police department fucking stood outside his house to protect him because
Oh, fuck that.
they all recognized that that was like a very valid, like murder, and they were just trying to protect their own kind of wall of silence, blue wall of silence, whatever. Um,
I think the 4 officers, so I think they increased, so it was originally a 3rd degree manslaughter or murder.
yeah.
It's been changed to a 2nd degree,
Hmm.
um, means more intense, and, the other 3 officers who were present at the scene were charged with aiding and abetting 2nd degree
Yeah.
manslaughter or murder. I
Yeah.
can't remember exactly which of the 2
It's
it was.
probably manslaughter because manslaughter is an opportunistic murder where murder is more preemptive in nature. So like
Okay,
he would have had to known him, like know who he was for him to be like murder. So it's
okay,
probably manslaughter.
okay. But yeah, so what you were saying about s- like segmenting the police force,
Yeah.
um, so that brings up an interesting point that I wanted to bring up. So in Minneapolis,
Hmm.
where like everything kind of kicked off, um, there is a threat of like the Minneapolis Police Department being disbanded by the city council,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's very apparently it's very much possible. Um, So just a direct quote here from this article. We can all attach it in the link or wherever we post this.
Mhm.
Minneapolis City Council members announced intentions to proceed with disbanding the police force, with Council President Lisa Bender on Sunday saying the council voted in favor of ending our city's toxic relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department.
Mm.
Uh, End policing as we know it, recreate systems of public safety that actually keep us safe. Yeah, it's just like it's it's like kind of wild to me to think that like part of me is a little worried about that because I'm like, oh shit, like is that is that the reform that's like going to be good? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was just something that came up
Yeah.
and I was pretty intrigued by it.
I don't think I don't think it would work, um, to that because like, when you think about, like, systems, like, transferring systems like this, I feel like this argument comes up a lot when you talk about, like, changing from coal to renewable energy. Um, if you just hard cut stuff, we will be, like, without power for a while, because like, we don't have institutions built up to do the renewable energy, and so many people lose their jobs that it would kind of crash the economy. Um, so what you have to do is do it in stages. I think it's possible to do it, like, uh, but I think they're doing it so aggressively because maybe, like, I feel like,
Like,
apparently, like, their police force is very corrupt or not structurally, like,
so they
they're
have like,
not.
would you say they have like greater incentive to act
Yeah, so I feel
more
like
quickly?
it's more of like, if this is the police force that's protecting us, we're probably better off without it, kind of thing. I don't know what they're gonna do in the meantime, though. It's a very curious thing,
Yeah,
cause to be
it
able to
seems like. Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry.
sorry, to be able to, like, do, like, a completely new institution, you have to train new people. If you're firing everybody from the department, I'm assuming, because why would you wanna keep them on? Um like, you have to train new people, they have to be ready for the field. And then there's always the question of like, what do you do about like armed robberies? So they were saying like for segmenting, like you would have traffic cops be unarmed because you don't need to be armed in a traffic cop scenario in a traffic situation. Um, or like for doing like small things like a disagreement about a bill being whatever, you would have a division that is in charge of like traffic, and they would go to like the traffic accidents, and they would be unarmed. But you would also need a division to handle armed, like conflicts, armed robberies, like shooters, stuff like that. So you need
Just like actually violent threats.
yeah, so you need a special division that handles violent threats. So you would need to be able to train those people to respond appropriately. And you also have to get people willing to put themselves in danger, So that might only be able to be for like ex-veterans or whatever, because they might be the only people willing to do it. Especially if the pay's really good. You'd also have to pay them a lot of money because they're literally putting their lives on the line every single day. So it's like,
So like, from what it looks like they did talk about like traffic and stuff. I think like I think the reason this is being brought up, like even if it doesn't go through, it's gonna help incite change within the police department
yeah,
because like there does have to be like a public vote on it. Like even if it doesn't get disbanded, like it shows like the threat of disbanding them
yeah,
is very real,
yeah.
and that in order to prevent that from happening,
They need to do
like
reform, yeah.
positive change needs to happen. But it's so I'm looking at this article and it's saying like they're kind of distributing like some of the things that police responds to like the police department responds to like different public um sectors, maybe that's the right word. So like for example, in a situation like a mental health crisis, it would go towards mental health professionals. um for like traffic laws, this says parking teams camera coverage. So I'm not sure how that would work, but like it seems like they're just trying to like what you were saying about how police are like basically they are made to be responsible for a lot more than just like safety. They're like for example like traffic laws like that goes towards like traffic people
Yeah,
rather than the police.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean we'll see what happens with that. Like that definitely very interesting to keep an eye on. Just because like this is a pretty recent article and it seems pretty possible that police could be disbanded.
Yeah, I think, like I really think it's just, like, a good idea to and police disbanding is, like, a really harsh way of saying it. There would be a police force in essence, like, there would be some people enforcing the laws and, like, arresting people that need to be arrested so that crime doesn't happen and there's no incentive to do crime. Because we saw in Minneapolis what happened as soon as like the police force wasn't available, people started rioting. It had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter movement. It was just opportunistic looting because there was no responders. You know, all the responders were at whatever that guy's name's house is. I'm not gonna give credit to the guy who killed George Floyd. I'm not gonna say his name because I don't even know it. I don't care. Um, but like they're all at his house protecting him for, which was like a really weird move. It's like, why would you whole police force? Was it the whole police force or was it just like a? I feel like it had to
I'm
have been.
honestly, I have no clue about that,
It's
but I
just
know that it
ridiculous.
happened, and I know it was total like horseshit. Like that's crazy.
Actually, just
That's like
ridiculous.
quick callback. Like actually no, now's not the time. Never mind. Um, but yeah. So that was definitely happening, which is just
I wanna.
stupid, corny.
Sorry, keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
That's all I had to say.
I just want to give this guy's thing. I think this is like the guy that I'm looking at. There's a man named Leondis Johnson at Leondis Johnson's. It's Leonydus, and then Johnson is spelled Johnson normally. He did a bunch
Mhm.
of statistical look at. He looked at the statistics of like black crime or like whatever and systemic racism, and he looked at like um there's a couple of people that did this. I saw it on Reddit, and trying to find stuff on Reddit is really difficult and annoying. um but there's one guy, I think it was Johnson, who did like the statistics of black on black crime and just showing how few people commit crime. Like there's like a statement that says 13% of crime is committed, or 50% of crime is committed by 13% of the population, and they're saying that like black people commit 50% of all crime, when really like that metric isn't 13%, it's like 0.01% of the population, because it's like 5,000 black people have committed like 50% of violent crimes, and then like 30% of violent crimes was committed by like 0.001% of white people, or like it was like 3,000. I think it was like 3,000 white people and like 5,000 black people are committing like 70% of like violent crime or something like that, and the other ones were really really low. Um, and like the whole point was like, I think we talked about this before, how statistics are really misleading if you don't. Did we talk about that?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
and it. I don't think we did, but it is true how like statistics can be very easily manipulated
Yeah.
to be to make you feel a certain way.
Yeah. So it's like, so they're saying like 13% of the population, which is the black population in US, is like 13% of the US population is black. They're saying that they commit the crimes, but it's not all of them. It's 5,000 people, and that 5,000 people makes up less than 1% of the US population. And that means that like 99% of black people aren't committing crimes. 99.9% of black people aren't committing crimes. So like to say that like, oh my god, you know, there's a black guy, oh he could be a criminal, like you're basically like saying it's racist to assume that, because the statistics don't support your view. It really doesn't.
Yeah,
Not even for
yeah,
white people, not even for like Latinos, not even for anything else. Like it just doesn't support your view. Like there are very few people who are committing crimes. Um and stuff like that. So they did a whole breakdown. There's another guy who did a breakdown of um like changing the police, like what effectively, like if you're changing stuff, it might be the same guy, but he was like what would be effective change. um and so like he looked at the statistics of what actually like is effective change, and I can try to look it up to give credit, but I don't know if I'll find it.
well, we can like include it. We'll definitely put it, the links to the things that we talk about, um like that we talked about in this episode, in the YouTube description. We'll
Yeah.
try and include it in the Spotify one, but we'll definitely like we're not just like we'll try and make sure like you're able to see what we saw,
Yeah.
and see maybe this is why we think the way that we do. Um, I
Yeah.
think we can kind of wrap up this episode.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about like if you do want to support this movement, there are a lot of ways to support. Um, like I think uh, one really big thing, going to protests. I can't say that I've been to one myself, just because like there is also like a pandemic going on, so it's like it's kind of tough. And I know that like numbers for that have like shot up just because of people protesting, but um, like physically showing your support there does make a difference. And
Yeah.
if you are able to do so safely, please do.
Yeah. I
You
also
guys
want
want
to
to add? Yeah.
say be very careful because there is still a virus um going around. I know that like it doesn't seem like it's that much, but like just 2 days ago, 800 people in the U.S. died from this virus, and it's still in full swing. I think the most deaths, uh, like at the height of the virus, the most deaths there were in a single day was like 1,500 or something like that. So we're still in like the big swing. And
Mhm.
if you don't practice like safe, like if you don't wear a mask, and if you're not like keeping distance between you and the next person, if you're like touching whatever, it's there could be a second wave coming soon. So just be careful. Um,
Just
the
if you do
virus
want to
is
go to protest,
yeah, the virus is
yeah, like
not
it
over. So
hasn't
just
stopped.
remember that and be
So,
careful when you do it. Also, be very, very careful because there is violence happening and it could be you. So just know what you're getting into when you get into it. It's also
mhm,
perfectly okay to just financially support if you don't think that you're able to like be there.
mhm.
Cuz like some people just can't go and some people can't be there. You have a responsibility to your family or you have a responsibility, to other people to be healthy and alive. Um and sorry, not saying that some people don't, but like but if you think that you are not able
Like,
to go, don't feel bad about it, but also find other ways to support. You can support Black Lives Matter movement financially. You can also just support black owned businesses and like just, you know,
yeah, like
post some stuff about
people have been I've been seeing a lot of posts about like Houstonian Houston black owned businesses,
yeah.
restaurants, things of that sort.
Hmm.
And like if you are able to support them financially, like please do so.
Yeah.
We can include like I can find a list and
Yeah.
put together a list and include it with this episode. If if maybe that isn't your cup of tea, you can always like donate. Just donate to BLM funds.
Yeah.
We can include some of those as well. I think there's also there's ways to provide financially, even
Hmm.
if you may not have a lot of even if you may not be very financially sound. For example, people have been putting together video compilations on YouTube that are like stacked with ads,
Yeah.
and just letting those run, turning off your ad blocker and letting those run. Um,
Well,
like it may not
yeah.
seem like a lot, but once it racks up, which they have, it can be really beneficial
It
financially.
you can they can make like millions of dollars because it's per view. And if it's monetizable, which it is, it's just music and stuff like that, or like whatever it is. You can like YouTubers will make a fuck ton of money from tons of views and stuff like that. So it's actually very, very like lucrative. I think it's like 7 cents per 1,000 views. So a million views is $100,000, just about. So, I think it's probably those things are probably nearing like billions of views. So if you think it's not that much money, that's some millions of dollars that they're getting. So that's a really good way for you to do it. Every time every time you hit an ad, that also change. I think 7 cents was low. It's probably be like if there's that many ads, it's probably like 20 cents per view or like
It's like
forty
it's just
cents.
stocked with them.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
because it's like 3 hours long
And
and stuff.
you don't have to like sit there and watch it.
Yeah, no,
I think
yeah,
it's possible to like just mute it and just let it run.
yeah,
Um, and I think one like really big thing is like trying to don't be ignorant. and
Yeah.
make sure you're checking your privilege. Like we said before, like by by no means are Isaac and I experts on this. Um, these are just this is just how we feel.
Yeah.
This is what we feel like needs to be. This is something that we feel like needs to be discussed. Um, and we are more than willing to learn um, about misconceptions that we may have. And and if you know more than us, please feel free to like message
Yeah.
us, reach out. You can message the podcast Instagram. You can message either me or Isaac on Instagram. Um,
Mhm.
but like I think it comes down to like making sure you're checking your privilege and make sure you're like increasing your awareness,
Yeah.
increasing your understanding and knowledge of the situation.
Yeah. If you feel like you don't have to protest to, feel safe, that is as privilege. And unfortunately, people feel like they have to protest, um, and unfortunately, like this protesting is needed for the change that we need for America to get to where it's going.
Hmm.
We're not we said this before. America's a big fucking country, and we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of good in our country, but we also have a lot of problems. And if we want to fix our problems, we gotta start exercising our First Amendment rights and stuff. So this is something that was long overdue. I know you see it constantly, like uh, people dying, just everywhere. To like just misunderstandings, police violence, whatever. So if you think that it's not necessary, if you think that it's not important, that is an extension of privilege. And as a white man, I can say that it's hard to notice privilege when you have it. It's very easy to notice a lack of it when you don't have it. It's kind of like if you have enough money in the bank, paying for something that's like $20, it's not a big deal. But if you're strapped for cash, $20 is not gonna happen. You know, like I can order a
Hmm.
favor if I'm financially sound, but if I'm like struggling to pay rent, I'm not. I'm eating in whatever. And some people are in that situation. They are strapped for social cash, and they need to do this protest, or else it could be them. So that's what they're trying to stop. Um, so yeah.
And one last thing that I want to end this on is like just because this is the end of this episode, um, does that mean that this is the end of the conversation?
Yeah.
Um, and it's very important to like continue this discussion. I think like we'll definitely like for bonus episodes we'll try and like continue talking about like issues and stuff rather than just trying to like make jokes and like our normal like dumb shit. Um but this definitely isn't the end of the conversation.
Hmm.
And it'll stay alive as long as people keep it alive.
Yeah.
Um and so just like be mindful and be cognizant of that.
Yeah. All right.
Anything else you want to add?
I think good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I really enjoyed this.
Hmm.
And you, listener or viewer,
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy this as well.
Hmm.
Um, we'll talk to you next episode.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Peace. Hey y'all. Uh, I realized I did have something more to say afterwards. I just want to say, like, if you're thinking about financially supporting like the Black Lives Matter movement, or just like causes like that, just be careful when you're like looking where to give your money, because there's a lot of people and organizations that are trying to profit off of this. So just do your research, look at the official website for Black Lives Matter and see who actually supports them, or where you can put your money to like institute the change that they're looking to make. And don't just give your money to like anybody, because there's so many people that are trying to scam you out of your money so that they can make money. Um, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Even with the YouTube videos that we talked about, like just watching it and letting the ads run, look to make sure that they are actually going towards the Black Lives Matter movement and like see if they're not a scam, because again, they might be profiting off of this stuff, which is really unfortunate. So that's all I want to say. Thank you. See you next time. Peace.